What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Engineered Impact Podcast. I'm Dan Korth, and today I want to talk to you about one of what I think is the most important but hardest to embrace principles of life, and that is that life is going to give every single one of us exactly the experiences that we need to become the person that we were born to be. I strongly believe that every single one of us was born into this life with a purpose, and that as we go throughout our life, we will be led to have the experiences that we need to have. Okay. Now, let me tell you why I started to think about this. On Sunday, so right now it's May 2020. We're in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic. Everybody's stuck at home. So, my family and I, we go to church every week, but we haven't been able to do that for the last several months. We've actually been doing services at home. And so we spend time in the scriptures with the kids every week. And this past Sunday, we were reading a story from the Book of Mormon with them. And the story is about a guy named Alma who was a priest to a wicked king, and a prophet came and taught the king, called him to repentance. And Alma was the only guy out of everyone in the court that listened to the message and decided to change his life. Okay, so he goes off. The king sends, he tries to persuade the king to change his ways. The king doesn't like that idea, and so he sends his soldiers to go chase this guy out and try to kill him. Well, he escaped. He decided to repent, and then he started teaching the things he learned to other people. And over time, he built up kind of a following, and eventually the king got wind of what was going on, and again, he sent his soldiers to go slaughter these people, right? And so they ran away, and they came to a valley that was a great place to live, and they started to set up a new life. Okay, they started building a city, they started creating farms and doing all these things, and became very prosperous. Well, life was going great until an invading army shows up one day and basically captured them and made them slaves. Okay, so here's these people. They've already left their life once. They were doing everything they were supposed to do. They were being good, and all of a sudden, here comes this awful thing, right? And now they're slaves, and they've got people that are taking the things that they're growing, and pretty miserable situation, right? But the story talks about the things that they learned from this experience. They learned to have patience. They learned to exercise faith. They learned to pray and have a positive attitude and trusting God to, trust His timing and that He would deliver them when the time is right. And when that time was right, He did. He created an opportunity for them to escape. And for the second time it doesn't say exactly how long, but the second time in not probably a few years, they had to pick up their entire life and walk away, right? But eventually they come to a city where they were able to bring something that was sorely needed, right? They were able to come, bring the things that they had learned, set up a church there, and help support a civilization, building up a strong civilization in this place, right? So the thing that we talk to our kids about is, as you go through life, you're going to have hard experiences. Part of life is just having challenges, right? But if we will do what these people did, if we will exercise faith, if we'll look for the opportunity to learn, to grow, to trust in God or the universe or whatever that is for you, right? Those experiences will help us become someone better and stronger than we are and more capable of doing the things that we need to do, right? If all of those things hadn't happened for Alma, he wouldn't have been in a position at the end to become a leader among the people, okay? So, it was a great discussion with our kids about there will be things that happen in our lives that aren't fun, but they're meant for us. They're meant to tutor us and train us and help us become the people that we need to be. Okay. So since Sunday, I've been pondering this idea in my head, and I've been reflecting back on my own life and what are some of the times where I've seen the things that have happened to me that weren't necessarily bad, but that weren't what I expected or didn't go the way I wanted, but have led me to become or be in the places I need to be or be the person I needed to be. One of the most stark examples for me has been my engineering career. When I was growing up, when I was a little kid, my dad was a private pilot. He flew for Cessna. And so he used to take me to the airport all the time. We'd go look at airplanes, and he had a plane that he flew, and he'd take me up, and I just loved it. I loved being there with him. I loved being around the airplanes. I loved flying. When I grew up, I wanted to be a pilot just like my dad. And so as I grew and continued that interest, I never had the money to get a pilot's license, but I thought, I can at least go design airplanes. That would be awesome. And so as I was going through college, that was kind of what I had in mind. I want to go design airplanes someday. Well, I got an internship before my senior year, and it wasn't designing airplanes, but it was designing jet engines, which are still pretty darn cool. And I got in there and I just fell in love with the technology. The more I learned about these things, the more fascinated I was about all the intricacies of what made them work and the fact that they worked at all. And I thought, you know what, if I can't design airplanes, engines would be really cool. So I went back to my senior year, I start looking for jobs, and lo and behold, I get an offer to come interview for a company that builds small airplanes and business jets. I thought, this is it, I'm there. So I fly out. I felt like I was on fire the whole time I was there. The interviews went great, and I ended up getting an offer from them. And I open it up, I'm all excited, and I look at the offer and I think, that's it? I just spent 5.5 years in college, and it wasn't that great. And I negotiated with them a little bit, but it was clear we just weren't going to get there, right? So I was like, well, okay, turn that down. Had an offer from another company that designed airplane parts. I was like, that wasn't going to be a good fit either. And so I decided I was going to go to grad school. And so I got an internship offer again from the same company I'd worked for before, doing jet engines. I thought, okay, sweet, I can do this, and they've invited me back, so maybe this will be my career path. Well, after I'd committed to all this, right? I'd committed to grad school, I'd committed to this internship. I got a call one day from a company out in Los Angeles that had pulled my resume out of a black hole and said, hey, we'd like to bring you out to interview. I was like, no, okay, why not? I hadn't pursued this at all, but I went out there. Interview went fantastic. LA was not a place my wife and I had ever thought we would live, but it was a great job, great company. It's close to a couple of really good options for grad school, and they were going to pay for grad school, and so we thought, well, okay, let's go do it for a few years, right? So we went out. Wasn't working on airplanes at all. Wasn't working on jet engines. I was working on radar systems and things like that. Were still cool, just not quite what I was passionate about. So went got the graduate degree, charged along, and we got to the point where we had 4 kids. We were in a 2-bedroom apartment in Southern California. And the charm of living in Southern California had worn off, right? We needed a house. So I started looking around for jobs, and I had an offer from a startup in Eastern California that was building a sweet little airplane, but it wasn't a great situation for our family. So we're like, well, okay, that wasn't it. And then out of the blue, got a call from a headhunter that wanted to recruit me for a job building jet engines back east. I was like, sweet, this is why the airplane thing didn't work out. We're going to go build jet engines. And went through that process. Interview was great. I was excited about the job, but again, the offer wasn't that great. They didn't want to make it worth my while to go out there. And, I was starting to get really frustrated because at this point I was, 6 years into my career, was doing well, was having, was learning, was growing, but just not feeling like I was getting to where, I was going to be doing the kind of work I wanted to be doing. And then, one day I got a call from a guy that I had worked with over the past several months to coordinate a training. He was out in Arizona, so different division of my company, but I'd worked with him to set up a virtual training for myself and a group of engineers out in LA. And it turned out through the course of doing that experience or that training, he was impressed with me. He felt like I really understood what they were doing, and he invited me to apply for a job out in Arizona. And I was like, well, why not, right? I've got nothing else going on. This kind of fell in my lap. So applied for the job, didn't even interview, and got an offer from them. So my wife and I talked about it. Like, well, this is definitely not designing airplanes. This is not designing jet engines. It was doing dimensional tolerance analysis. And I won't bore you with the details if you don't know what that is, but it was not engines or airplanes, right? So we moved to Arizona to go do dimensional tolerance analysis. And I thought, this is a valuable skill, at least maybe this can be my niche and, key to fame and fortune. So off we go to Arizona. And it became very, very clear when I got there within weeks that this was not going to be my thing, right? It's still important. It just was not going to be my thing. And lo and behold, 10 weeks after I got there, the project that they had hired me to support never materialized, and they ran out of work for me, and they said, sorry, we need you to go somewhere else. So I went off, worked on some random project building hardware, which it was really cool. It was fun. I like working with my hands. But, at this point, it was just, my career felt very weird. I felt like I was bouncing around, no direction, and just all these twists and turns that didn't seem to be going anywhere near where I wanted to be, right? So one day, I find out this project's coming to an end. I'm going to be out of work again. I've been in Arizona for like 11 months at this point. And I'm going to have been through 2 jobs. And so I was back near my office for a performance review one day. And as I was leaving the building, I ran into a guy that I'd met. I never talked to him that much, but I knew who he was. We struck up a conversation in the hall and ended up back in his office and found out he, prior to coming to work for our company, had worked at Pratt & Whitney, which is one of the few major engine manufacturers, jet engine manufacturers. And so I was like, oh, that's awesome. You worked at Pratt. And I shared that I'd worked at doing some engine design as an intern, and we talked shop for a little bit, and that was it. And I left. And a few days later, I ran into this guy again, and he walked up and he said, hey, are you still interested in engines? I said, yeah, absolutely. He said, I may have a job for you. I was like, well, that'd be great because I'm about to lose my job. And so it worked out. And all of a sudden, after all the twists and turns, lo and behold, I got to go work on jet engines. And from there, I was able to start building a network. I was able to develop some further skills and grow my role into someone that supports propulsion projects on multiple programs. Okay. I never could have seen that path from where I started. Okay. And so as I reflect, as I sit from where I am today and I look back at that experience, I can see how these things kind of fell together. Right. But what I've learned from that experience is that, again, for me, I firmly believe there's a higher power. For me, that's God, that guides and directs the paths of our lives, if we'll let him. And the key to that, I believe, is that we always need to be moving forward, right? Now, maybe that path isn't going to look anything like what we thought it was. My career certainly has looked nothing like I thought it would. But if we are trying, if we're doing what we can to learn, if we're doing what we can to grow, if we're doing what we can to build a network and to become more than we are, then we will be given the opportunities and the experiences that we need to be in the position where when those opportunities arise, we're ready for them. We're in the place we need to be. We are the person that we need to be to take advantage of those opportunities. And so, as I look at that and I reflect on that, I realize sometimes those experiences are very challenging, right? Now for me, all those years, this happened, gosh, I don't know, 8 years into my career, right? So for 8 years, I felt like I was floating, and there were times where I felt like I was having breakthroughs and then they didn't work out. And there were just all these twists and turns that I never could have seen how those were all going to come together to allow me to do something that I was passionate about. But because I was constantly trying to move forward, things worked out that way, right? Now, thinking about life in a broader sense, I look at what's happening in the world right now. Again, we're in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world. A lot of people's lives have been turned upside down. People have lost family members. People have been sick. People have lost their jobs. People have lost their businesses. For some people, this has been an absolutely devastating experience. For others, it's rocked their world, but in ways that aren't necessarily bad. As I've been working at home and I found I have a little bit more time than I thought I would, I took advantage of that time to take a training that I'd had my eye on for about 6 months, but could never make the time to do it. And I recognized that here was an opportunity to, learn a new skill and grow from that. But the thing that I really want to emphasize today is that no matter how COVID has affected each and every one of us, and it's affected everybody, but I believe that those effects for every single person are an opportunity, right? Whether it's been an awful experience, whether it's been a positive experience, what we're experiencing right now is an opportunity to step back, reflect on who we are, where we're at, why the things that are happening may have happened, but most importantly, to ask ourselves, how are we going to embrace what's happened, whether good or bad, and grow from this, right? Whatever your experience with COVID has been, this is an opportunity for you to grow, for you to move forward, to either recognize opportunities to become more than you are, or maybe to learn a lesson to do something differently as we emerge from this, right? If your world is rocked financially, maybe that looks like developing some different job skills, or saving more money, having more set aside in reserves, or having some extra toilet paper at home, right? It could be something as simple as just being more prepared for life to happen, for unexpected things to happen. If your experience with COVID has been more positive, where you're realizing that, I really like working from home, and maybe this is an opportunity to develop new skills, to come out of this with a new relationship or a new skill, or understanding more of how to empathize with people who have not had a positive experience. Whatever it is, reflect on the experience you've had. What is it you can learn from it? And then go to work. Go to work to make a plan to change whatever you need to change to emerge from this crisis stronger than you are, better than you are, and better equipped to go and be the person that you're meant to be. Okay. I believe that as we do that, as we build a habit of that, and we do our best to recognize opportunities, whether the experiences we have are hard, whether they're good, whether they're positive, I believe each of these opportunities or these experiences is an opportunity to learn. The hard part, especially when the experiences are miserable, is looking at it as an opportunity, right? Weathering through it, soldiering through it, and looking at, how do I emerge from this stronger? How do I emerge from this better? And becoming the person that you were born to be. And I believe firmly, as we do that, as we each look for those opportunities, as we do our best to imperfectly move forward, to do our best to soldier through these things, that we will be given the opportunities and the experiences that we need to mold us, to form us into the people that we were born into this world to be.